I hope in these last few Sundays you have felt that you were made more a disciple of Christ and made better equipped to go out and serve Christ as a disciple. Whenever we talk about discipleship, we look to those people who have been great disciples. We started out by the Sea of Galilee with this series, and lately we've been talking about the Apostle Paul as the great mission of Christ moves away from those tiny little places around the Sea of Galilee all the way to the great cities of the Roman Empire like Corinth and Galatia and Lystra and Derbe and Lycaonia and Iconium, all these wonderful cities. And for the most part, it was the Apostle Paul who founded the churches in all of those places. Now, we come to a point where Paul is in the midst of his third missionary journey. And he's at a point where he knows he's done all that he can do in the region of Asia Minor. There's only one place left for him to go, and that is the mighty city of Rome itself. And we know from the testimony of Scripture and secular history that Paul did go to Rome, and that's where his ministry and life ended. But before he goes to Rome, he has to do something. He has to pick a successor for himself. Now, can you imagine trying to find someone to replace the Apostle Paul? This man of extraordinary giftedness and power and influence, this person who will suffer anything for Christ, how is he ever going to choose a replacement? But he did it, and he did it successfully. And this is what he did. He could have picked from any one number of people around him who were strong and powerful and well established. Instead of that, Paul picked an absolute newcomer to the faith. Not only that, he picked a person who had all kinds of things going against him. But he had one thing going for him, and that was the depth and power of his faith. How did Paul know who to pick? And how did Paul know that in choosing this person he was doing the right thing? And how could Paul recognize when faith was really strong? And this is the answer. Paul searched himself. Paul said, what is it that made me a person willing to love Christ to the end? Or, as the choir sang this morning, to love that little lamb until I die. And this is the thing that had made Paul's faith so powerful. Now you may be thinking, oh, his conversion in the 9th chapter of the Acts of the Apostles, not that. Because even though that was the outward conversion of Paul, there was an inward conversion for him that started one chapter earlier in an event which he would never forget. And if you recall the last words of the 7th chapter and the very first words of the 8th chapter of the Acts of the Apostles, you will know that I am talking about the stoning death of Stephen the Apostle. And the terrible part about that story is that it occurs under the guidance and supervision of Saul of Tarsus. He is the one who is out to destroy the church. And the final words of that story, which appear in Acts 8 verse 1, are these: and Saul was consenting to his death. So we have this image of Saul standing by, watching the stoning death of Stephen. But we know that at that point he himself was in the balance between accepting and rejecting Christ, and when he saw the devotion of Stephen, when he saw a man who was willing to die for what he believed in, his faith was changed, and he knew that he had found a faith that was good for life and for eternity. So when Paul set about to choose a successor for himself, he said, who do I know that has been through a similar experience and witnessed a person willing to die for his faith? Because until you know that your faith is worth